Alright everyone, we've got political shenanigans as we start off today talking about Zach Henry and the Total Virality Project, actually. He's a former Vivic staffer, actually, and Vivek Ramaswamy still had a contract with this dude, immediately canceled it. Turns out that RFK Jr.'s campaign has been paying thousands of dollars to this particular project, and the goal is to compile like a list of influencers and attempt to get them to back RFK Jr., possibly by paying them. We've seen this commonly. The DNC is famous for this, using various third-party adages like David Brock's people, Clear Blue, things like that, and to try to influence people that are on the DNC payroll, usually through again a third party, to try to influence voters by astroturfing. We see like with Harry Sisson and some of these others. We know that a third-party company that's given money by the DNC is paying them to make tweets, for example. And there are some people who mysteriously are taken in by this. When you have a bunch of people replicating the exact same talking point at exactly the same time, and you get the feeling this is not an organic, like a viral trend, it's an attempt to astroturf a trend. And then the hope is that it replicates, it becomes organic after you sort of seed it. And that appears to be what's happening here. Now, several different influencers that were on this release docket have already weighed in and said, no, I'm not being paid to support RFK Jr. I'm 100% team Donald Trump. And they're on the Trump train. So it appears not to have really had an impact. And this individual, when queried about this, is like basically being flippant and dismissive and saying, that's not happening, and ha, lol, LOL, LMAO, get with me, meme kids. We're going to hack the meme frame. It's almost a little bit like, you remember with Elizabeth Warren's meme team back in the day? And it was an obviously astroturfed, paid-for campaign, and they made exactly one meme. And then the real meme was actually the existence of this group itself. And who knows how much money they spent overall on literally one meme before everyone discovered it was an astroturf, and then they shut down abruptly because it's no longer impactful if people know that it's not organic. RFK Jr.'s campaign is much the same. His campaign is also fundamentally over as of his abortion comments the other day, because other than the far-left cringe fringe, nobody's going to support him on that. We'll be talking about that in today's live stream, actually. Again, 11:30 Eastern Time, a.m. that is, of course. He's pretty much sunk his chances of doing damage to Trump. His running mate had to come out immediately and say, well, it's not actually his position. That's going to be a funny one. That'll be one of the main stories of the day for the live stream. Link in the description, archived, of course. There's uncovered evidence that at least an attempt was made by the RFK Jr. campaign to try to pay so-called influencers in order to support him and his ideas. Now, I'd point out, just because somebody's on that list, or RFK Jr. seems to like them, like with Rand Paul. Lauren Southern put that out the other day, that Rand Paul was he had been endorsed as, for instance, Senate Majority Leader and or Minority Leader by RFK Jr. Just because an individual says something about a candidate that's positive does not mean that they're being paid to do so. For instance, I praise Trump on the reg. I don't get any money from that that's not coming from my audience or from merch sponsors and stuff like that. I don't get paid by the RNC. Not that they would pay you to support Trump anyway. I don't get supported by Trump Incorporated or his PACs or anything like that. I get $0 from any political donor whatsoever. But that's not always the case. In some cases, it's inorganic. It's astroturfed. You'll note this, if somebody is dead in the water, like the algorithms don't favor them, chances are that they're not getting paid to post their bullshit. But like with Brooklyn Dad and Harry Sisson and others, we know that to be the case. But here we've got an actual paper trail by which we know that at the very least an attempt was made by his campaign to buy people in order to effectively advertise through third parties that seem independent. And this is what we should be worried about, is that sometimes it's not entirely clear who's getting the money and who's not. And it can be a little bit difficult. I mean, I suspect numerous individuals of being on various payrolls through PACs, again, direct donations. Normally, like the DNC, RNC, etc., they're not going to donate directly. So saying you're on the DNC payroll, no. You're on the payroll of a third-party company that's effectively subcontracting. Whether this attempt became fruitful or not, or whether it was just a money grift to get money from RFK Jr.'s fairly lucrative campaign and get attention, remains to be seen. But the attempt was there. I suspect that in most cases it would fail, because why would you want to, hitch up your wagon to a losing horse? It makes no sense. RFK Jr. came out the other day and said basically, hey, there's a dead worm in my head. And then he doubled down and said, I offer to eat 5 brain worms if Trump and Biden will debate me. Okay, well, maybe that'll increase your mental aptitude because you appear to be going off the rails. It's not even a serious campaign. It's really not. The reason why he took on his current running mate wasn't because of broader ideology, but because she has deep pockets and a lot of ties to donors. That's basically the only reason. Then she had to come out and do damage control over the abortion thing. And the fact is, Vivek Ramaswamy, by the way, came out, blasted this immediately. He did what was right, by the way. He's a big-time Trump surrogate. He came out, disavowed, and said, well, we did have a remnant contract involving this individual, but we've decided to scrap that because this is unacceptable. Good on you, Vivic. Yeah, actually rising in my estimation a little bit. I don't think Vivic was in on the joke. Much like with Rand Paul in the post the other day by Southern, I said, it might be fruitful to bring this to the attention of Rand Paul that he's working with somebody who appears to have some ties to RFK Jr. because he might genuinely not know. He's busy doing the Senate thing. He's a workhorse. He can't keep tabs on literally everyone around him. Sometimes you can give that credence to a political figure. Sometimes you're like, well, you had to have known. It's a little bit too on the nose, too obtuse. In other cases, it's just like politics is like a pile of spaghetti where things are kind of intertwined and, you have to find one end of the spaghetti noodle and then the other end, and it can be difficult. It's very convoluted, very complex. Politics makes very strange bedfellows. It's odd, then, that in this case we have direct evidence that this attempt was made, with the payment and the blessing of RFK Jr.'s campaign. His campaign is not like Trump's campaign or even Biden's campaign, involving numerous connections, hundreds of staff, thousands of staff, donors and investors and attaches and all sorts of other things. RFK Jr. is a minor candidate. The fact that he has a double-digit polling percentage in some states and is at least in the high single digits nationally does not mean that he's a viable candidate. He's an astroturfed candidate, as we're seeing now. He's also definitely not the Trump killer that some people worried that he would be. I kept getting it when we first dropped his Dem bid in favor of an independent bid. Oh my God, he's there to sink Trump. I think that may be his goal, but it ain't working too well. Partially because he goes off the rails and says stupid shit, and partially because of things like this. It looks skeevy. He's a sleazebag, basically. That's what RFK Jr. is, a disingenuous sleazebag, and I'm surprised that there's any individual who's not on the far left of politics who would be supporting him. Considering his statements with regards to guns, environmental justice, and now abortion, it's looking more and more like he's lurching off into Elon Omar land than anything else, actually. That's about all. Peace out.